Good evening. Welcome. It is time for another wonderful Monday night show. Well, a good Monday night. It's time
And
for
we're
Monday
back.
night, and it's with John and Cubbie and myself, and we are here. And Cubbie's like watching baseball in the corner, but that's okay. We are here to have some fun with all of you. And tonight's topic is very broad, John.
Yes. Because I
Yeah.
wanted to have it where we can basically go any direction because I know we are usually so focused, so narrowly defined that we tangents and going a direct doesn't happen. So tonight we're going to try something a little bit different and kind of open it up and covering a lot of potential different areas. But the idea behind it is that we're going to be able to give some usable tips of the things that we have done, we have experienced with ourselves, or maybe some of our close friends have, or some things that we have learned and we can share tonight on how to become a better DJ, which will encompass a lot of different things. Not only the DJ as a performance, but a DJ as a person, and the business and the business side of things, any of those areas. Because we all see on Facebook and different chat rooms and out in the Reddit's world that there's a lot of people who like the idea of being a DJ or want to be a DJ, and there's areas in which they struggle and they are posting about it. So tonight's going to be kind of a catch-all night that we're just going to be sharing. And if there's questions or things that pop up in the chat, we'll definitely hit those too. But a lot of what tonight will be is our way of trying to help fellow DJs out there to just become a little bit better. And one area I think that kind of started that is Dan, did you ever get a chance to see Randy Bartlett talk live with his 1% solution? Mm-hmm. And Cubbie, did you actually sit in on that, or were you too busy in the hall signing autographs?
No, I went to several of his, took a couple of his courses, got all the DVDs, even the one that was on VHS tape.
Oh yeah, that was that was a long time ago.
Yeah, well,
but Randy
DJ'd the Last Supper, so he had some video from the Last Supper.
Yeah, he had some footage from that. It was great, except when Jesus took the microphone and started. But anyway,
hip hop, hippity hop.
So Randy Bartlett mentions had the 1% solution, and that 1%, it's been interpreted a variety of different ways. But one of the ways that it's used, not only Randy kind of talked about it, and others outside of our industry who have used a similar method, was that if you can do something to be just a small increment better, just to improve yourself just a little bit, you don't have to go and do something to be incredibly, to change, in one step. It's those little incremental things that can make a big difference in your performance or in your life. And that's really why these are going to be little things that you can maybe implement to make that little bit of change that over time, with more changes, will become a major change in your business or in your life. So, oh yeah, Greg mentions that the DVDs, yep, Randy was clearing them out for a couple of bucks during the pandemic, just to after he had kind of retired and was settling in, getting ready for his move to his Teehee Lodge.
Yeah, T Lodge out there.
Yeah, where he moved into. So excellent. So guys, where do we want to start? What area should we kind of dig into first?
I don't know. Should we talk about trade shows and education?
Let's do that, because we just finished up a show here with Casey from the Marquee Show, marqueeshow.com, which is coming
Amazing
up in
show.
June. Great. Oh my gosh, he went through the lineup for the night. Fabulous stuff. We've got Midwest DJs Live. That is next week?
Next week.
Yeah,
I think it's next week.
Yeah.
Coming up really, really quick here. So there's opportunities out there. You've got DJ Expo, then there's going to be Wedding MBA. There's a variety of different areas out there. Collective, I mean, there's different educational content, different parts of the country. So let's start there. First off, and it's a common question. Somebody asked it in the chat tonight, and I guess let's start with this question, and we'll kind of branch as we go. For somebody who's like, I've never been to a show, what's a show going to do for me? Cubbie,
Oh,
you start us off. Start us off with that.
yeah. After working with Mobile Beat and American Disc Jockeys, you're producing lots of shows, and you through you, John. The shows are amazing, and there's shows on different parts of the coast and even the Midwest that you don't have to travel to Vegas for your East Coaster. You can go to Atlantic City. You can go to Midwest DJs Live in Milwaukee, the Marquee Show, all of them with great educational content. I like to focus on shows that are educational content, looking at the speakers, what can I get from, and I literally go and sit at every seminar that I can, providing I'm not working it, if I'm not working with somebody. But the friendships that you meet, you see people on Facebook, the chats in the hallways, the dinners, you got to put yourself out there. You can't go and be a loner and be like, oh, I don't know anybody, I'm not gonna talk to anybody. You've got to put yourself out there, and you got to introduce yourself. And if you go by yourself or you group with a group of guys, but go to them. And if you see any side educational, whether it's Bill Herman's, Mike Walter, Mark Farrell, any of those side ones like master workshops with microphones or any of those, take them, get them while you can, because it's gold. It is gold. It'll help you build your business, and it'll make you a better DJ. You can find, I've been doing this for 18 years, and I can still find something in any seminar that I can apply. Maybe I forgot about it and go, man, I need to bring this back. I forgot about this. There's always something you can find at a show. Always. It's a great investment.
Dan, what has been your experience?
I would echo exactly what Cubbie said. There's so many great opportunities out there. There's so many different conferences throughout the different parts of the U.S. And I think that's also, sometimes finding the one that works well for you, not just what education they might be offering, but the time that might work with your schedule and everything like that. I think it's important for you to make sure you're at least blocking one of them out. Too many times I hear, different DJs will post like, well, I didn't go to that one, or I can't go, I got a scheduling conflict. Well, it seems like you always have a scheduling conflict. So I'm going to call you out on that. Like, make room for one of them, because it's going to be an opportunity to grow. And then I've heard some, kind of what, Cubbie kind of alluded to, is that sometimes you hear the complaint that, oh, it's 101. It's 101 stuff, right? Get in those seminars, find something, because I guarantee there is going to be something that is brought out that's going to be that extra piece, or it's going to be a new way of thinking, maybe some of those base skills, right, that you might need, but that can help you improve. And make sure you're spending your time in the seminars. You spend a lot of money to go to these, whether it's the travel and those type of expenses as well as the tickets, but you're going to learn something. Staying out all night at the party and then sleeping in through the seminars is not a good way to learn and improve on yourself. It's what you got to do to make yourself better. And I will say this extra piece. This is something I did. It was my first year. I went to DJ Expo that's what it was called at the time. And I went by myself. I happened to win a ticket. I had never really known the show, but I knew some of these different names through Facebook. And there was a couple of guys that I reached out to when we were there, and I was like, we started chit-chatting. I was like, hey, can I buy you lunch? And we went, and we just, we went to like Johnny Rockets. I remember, like, for the one, and we just talked for like an hour and ate dinner and shared ideas. And it was so enlightening, because I did not have that kind of relationship with any of the DJs locally.
Right.
So to go and have that and be able to talk shop with somebody, it was, oh my gosh, it was well worth, like, I don't know, 20, 25 bucks that the meal might have cost.
Mm-hmm.
It was well worth it. So I encourage you to do those kind of things. Sometimes it can be intimidating, and sometimes they might say no because they already got a busy schedule. Find somebody else. Find somebody else that's in your same position, that's looking for somebody to chat with, and you'd be surprised the connections you'll make.
For sure.
In every profession, well, it's a doctor, real estate, insurance, you're always having to do continuing education, renewing your license. Well, we don't have a license to DJ, but if you're going out and doing the same event 20 times a year or 30 times a year, you're not original. So don't tell your brides you're original. You're just doing the same thing over and over again. So I think the shows will bring you a breath of fresh air into your events. If you ever get to see Digital Dave Landers and his musical programming, get it. If you go online and I think he sells it, get that one. I tell you what, it'll eye-opening, just amazing. And don't ever go into, like, going what Dan said, don't go in there thinking it's all 101. Don't go with a chip on your shoulder going, well, I know all that. I've been doing it for 18 years. I never, and he's going with an open mind, take lots of notes, and you're going to come out with something. You really are.
So speaking of that, I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes to think about this. So I'll share my first one. But what was the greatest tip or greatest lesson that you were able to implement in your business that you picked up from a show? Now, that doesn't have to be a seminar or a speaker, but it could be a hallway discussion. It could be a dinner. Think about that, guys. I'm going to share mine. Mine came from a Todd Mitchum seminar, actually, when we were doing interactive things. This would have been in the early 2000s. And Todd Mitchum was very much into teaching how to be interactive and how to work with a crowd and how to engage a crowd, but really how to control a room. And we would try to get the wedding party to lead or do something with a dance. My thing that I was doing at the time was a YMCA skit, because it was still big at that time. We had the hats and everything and dressed people up, and they had a lot of fun with it, but it was never quite as good as it could be. Well, Todd came out when he was demonstrating it. He basically, hey, watch me do what I do. And he would lead the people, whether he was leading them from the stage down to the audience, or if he was leading from in the audience to the people on stage, and people on stage were leading the rest of the room. But it was that concept of watch me do what I do, simple directions, and then he could go and do the motions, the activities, the follow me type dance things that made that and numerous routines that we were using through the early 2000s just all of a sudden went from being, oh, that was kind of fun, to, oh my God, that was incredible. We were all doing that. And did you see Grandma was out there and she was doing that? And then in the back corner, we had people and we were all in sync. Oh my gosh, it was like this big thing. And it was almost so great. That one little piece was able to really, for a long time, carry referrals, because people they weren't used to that. They hadn't seen the ability to have a group of people doing the exact same thing at the exact same time, all being led by the wedding party type of a situation. So, Todd Mitchum. Okay, awesome. Dan, what was that one tip or one lesson that you picked up that's like, oh my gosh, this was great?
This probably came from like the very first one. And the only reason why I say it was the best one is because it probably had the biggest impact on how I was doing things. I did everything from behind my console, hiding, for lack of better terms, microphone in hand. And one of the I don't even remember who it was now at this point who put this in my head, because I didn't even think about doing it. But the idea of being an MC when you are an MC and being in front on the floor in front of everybody. I know I've heard it multiple places. I know Mike Walter. I've heard it from Mark Farrell. I've heard it from a bunch of other ones. But it was one of those concepts that it was like kind of new for me to do. And it was just that piece that then commanded that attention, commanded that, control of the room by being in that position. And now it's something that I do as long as I can, every time that I need to be an MC and not just the DJ.
Nice. Yes, that has been a lesson I learned also the long time ago, or the hard way. Why aren't they listening to me? I'm going to hide behind my computer even more. Well, actually, back then it was hide behind my coffin even more.
Yeah.
Cubbie, what was one thing that stood out for you?
Well, I'm going to go a different route. You went interactive. Dan went emceeing. I'm going to go programming, and I'm going to go refer back to Digital Dave Lander. And it was just happened at the Wedding MBA. It was a phenomenal seminar. Finding out the ages of your couples, finding out the year they graduated, finding out the year they went to middle school, then going to Billboard, finding the top one. DJ Event Planner and other people have great top 200s. And you can wing a party, but when you start investing your time into your brides and grooms, finding out the years that they graduated, finding out what the bangers were that bring them back, because we all know music brings us back to special times in our lives and brings us back to special memories. And you're there on the dance floor with your friends, the bride's there with all of her friends and her family, and when they can relive that. And then he talked about short edits. I know everybody's a thing trending now is short edits, kind of keeping short. And he was like, "What song is a short edit? What one's not a short edit?" It was just it was a mind-blowing seminar. And now the way that I approach, and never be afraid to take chances. never be afraid to play a song because you can get out of it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you never know if it's going to hit or not. And so you see it, you think it's going to work, go for it, and if not, like I said, just roll out of it early. But it's Dave Lander programming. If you ever get to see him, he's amazing.
Excellent. Yeah, he is very
And
good. I've enjoyed enjoyed listening to him and having him on shows and such. He's a good guy there. Thomas Heath mentions, thanks Thomas for joining us tonight. The statement from Dave Tournier. Dave Tournier, for those of you who don't know, was Wednesday night Jeremy and Dave for a couple of years. Goodness, they did a lot of episodes, doing a wedding chat on Wednesday nights and really digging into a lot of what they were doing and their thoughts behind what the world of weddings were all about. If you get a chance, it's a playlist on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/discjockeynews. But it's one of the playlists there. But Thomas mentions the statement from Dave Tournier, raising my prices after not hearing no 6 times in a row. Dave Tournier had worked himself up from a average in his market dollar DJ to the point where when he was wrapping up his DJ company in the location he was at, that he was up in that $4,000+ for the event night for his talent. Basically, there really wasn't a lot of gear involved. It wasn't a lot of this. It was basically his talent and his personality coming to the event, and he was just very good at what he did and a very good person, and did very, very well. So when he's mentioned this on one of the shows a couple of times actually when he and Jeremy were talking, is that he would go to the point, and one of the parts of his raising his rates was when he was hearing yes too often, too frequently, that then he knew that his rates were the normal and accustomed for what he was providing, and it was time to move on. When we did a show with Drax, and we talked about this, and Drax used the concept of, if you're booking over 80% of your shows, your rates are probably not high enough. If you're booking 90, and some people say, I'm booking 100% of my shows, I'm booking everybody. Well, you're probably not charging what you could be charging. Whether you're charging a fair rate or not, I'm not going to discuss that, or that's a different topic. But the idea that you might be leaving money on a table because you have, whether it's you're a very good salesperson, whether it's a very good what you have, or your referrals, or your reviews, whatever it is, if people are so excited and they're willing to book you at such a high rate, you're probably not getting your full value of what you could be getting. And that's was a great for a lot of people. That was a great eye opener, because everyone's like, oh, I want to be 100% closing, and that's great. Well, that might not be the ultimate goal of what you want. So
it's hard to take those no's, but if you can take those no's to give you that, I don't know, direction to move forward, and realize that it is part of that business process, you can really make yourself in a much better financial situation from that.
See, speaking of the no's, when in those early 2000 times, we were moving our prices from 800 to 1,000 to 2,000, and in that by the time we hit the 2005, 6, 7, we were booking between $1,500 and $2,000 shows on a regular basis. And the part is when we would hear the people say no. Generally, it was from couples who were at some of the most high end venues in our market. The people who were saying yes were the people who were getting married in their backyard, or they're getting married in a VFW. I had more of my $2,000 weddings at American Legions and VFWs. It was just how it worked out. It was the darndest thing. But I've gone back every once in a while. I did a contract show a couple of years ago, and I went back and really looked at our contracts. When we went from the $200 starting point back in 1990 to where we went throughout the years. And it's like, oh my gosh, you could see when we were at this price range, we were working these venues. And then as we went up, you would think we'd go to the nicer venues. No, we were actually at the nicer venues in this price range. And as we went up, we ended up going to a different type of venue. And then we hit this period where we were doing some very expensive shows, because some of the couples at that time, they were like, we're having hamburgers tonight for our meal, but we wanted to spend on a really good DJ. So you're here at the VFW tonight. Okay, let's do it.
I love hamburgers.
Exactly. Yeah, they're really good burgers. It's like, build your own burger. Hello. I'm all over that. Okay. So let's...
While we're talking about this,
yeah.
one thing that I would kind of encourage is, is when you go to these shows, you're going to be on a high for a time. If this is not something you've been at, when you're there and you're immersed in the DJ culture for the week, if you will, when you leave, you're going to have a confidence probably like none other. Take advantage of that to increase your rates. I will say this: when I've taken, maybe not so much after some of my expos that I've gone to, but definitely when I've taken some of those workshops, I come out of the workshops and I'm like, that's it, extra $200. I'm just gonna do it because I've just found that what I get from that gives me the skills, and having the skills makes me feel more confident. Make me feel more confident allows me to sell it better. And then when the couples reach out to me, it's not like, here's the price. It's this is the price. And it just makes a big difference in that long run.
See, now, Dan, that actually, I can get that same feeling of a confidence and accomplishment after going and having a really good practice session, meaning when you set the controller up and, MJ, one of the times that he was helping me get some things set up and working. And then I went after we were done. And I think I played for about 2 hours working on some different, getting some cue points set and okay, this song and this song. Oh my gosh, that works. And after you get done with that and it's like, 90% of the DJs out here just couldn't do what I was doing here in this last little bit of time. Why would I be able to have this skill and this ability? And I've just been practicing it, and it's gotten pretty darn good. Usually I'm a pretty harsh critic of my own stuff. That was really good. I mean, even my son would have probably said, "Wow, that's pretty good for an old guy." And that, so after doing that and having a successful practice session with that, or going and having a time of working on reading through some scripts and such, because I have my different scripts from probably the last 25, 30 weddings. I save them on my Apple Notes, and I could literally go back and do the wedding party introductions for the last 3 or 4 years. But to go back and work on some of those different things, when you get done with that and you've had a really successful time with it, it's like, okay, you know what? I feel that I am now more valuable because I have worked on my craft.
Saving notes is a great thing. When you get a referral from a couple and they're at that wedding, you pull up your old notes, play their first dance song as a slow song that night, get more referrals. Like, you remembered. I'm like, well, yes, I did. They're like, it was that, you see him saying, I'd look at my notes. I have no idea that I looked at my notes on my laptop, but another great idea. Like, you always save your notes, man. I got them for years. And when I get a referral and that couple's at a wedding, I'll go look at my previous notes, look at what their first dance song was, and just slip it in there as a slow song throughout the evening. And it just brings them back, and they're like, he's just gives me more referrals.
How often, guys, when you have a couple from a past wedding that are in a crowd, and if you don't know it because your current couple didn't say, oh, by the way, Bob and Sheila are going to be there, and you did their wedding 5 years ago. All of a sudden, you're seeing these people, and you're like, gosh, they look familiar, kind of, maybe. He does. He looks really familiar. She look maybe familiar. I don't know. How is that something you guys struggle with? I know I struggle with that a lot. And then it's like when I finally figure it out, it's like, okay, I think his name is Mike.
Randy Bartlett.
I love seeing where they're at the dinner table, and then I'll go over and I'll try and look at the seating chart that's like printed on some board somewhere, and I'm like, and that narrows it down to the table, and then I'm like, oh yeah, because one of the things that also happens to me every once in a while is it's not a wedding that I've done, it's a wedding I have coming up.
Oh.
And I haven't met with them for the planning portion, but I met with them in that, like, hey, let's get together.
Yep,
you want to hire me?
Yeah.
And so I spend sometimes with those meetings, depending upon how they go, sometimes half an hour, sometimes an hour. And so I'm spending an hour of time with them, and then I run into them, and it's like, okay, did I see them at a wedding? Did I work with them at one point? And like my mind, just like you said, is like all over the place. And so I'll stock the seating chart to figure it out.
Randy Bartlett. Sorry, John. I didn't know.
Ahead,
Randy Bartlett. He's as old as I am, and he always said it was great. He says, "I know your face. Tell me how I know you." And then they'll say, "Oh, you did my wedding 6 years ago. Oh, you've changed a lot, or your hair is different." And that's how I was like, "How do I know you?" Was it trivia? Was it a corporate event? Was it a previous wedding? Or then sometimes, like you said, those flat out come up and tell you, you did my wedding 7 years ago. And you're like, okay, where was it? You know, maiden name. What was your maiden name, ma'am? And I can tell you exactly. But yeah, it's embarrassing.
One of the somebody had shared that they will take a picture of the couple, like when they do that pre-sales meeting, and they'll be like, you know, get together, smile, click, and then they'll put that in their file, either printed out or if they have a digital file like I do. For a lot of the couples, I can find, you know, with a little internet stalking, I can kind of find pictures of them, and I have taken, you know, their engagement picture and put it in a folder or on those pages of the notes. So that way, I'm hoping that will help. I mean, just from the perspective of picking the groom out on the day. Yes, we've met a couple of times, but generally when they're wearing a baseball cap and they're a little gruff looking, whatever, or you're not shaven, whatever. And then when they get there, they're all cleaned up, they're all dressed up, and they have a brother that's a couple of years younger or older and looks almost identical. It's like, and it's like, okay, so one of them's wearing a white flower and the other one's wearing a red one, and they're both wearing the same outfit. Well, because of having the picture, and it's like, oh, wait a second, my groom looks like he's about 20 pounds heavier than he. Fred, yeah, it's great to see you. Yeah, that was one of my weddings this past summer. The picture, the Facebook stalking had helped on that one, but. Yeah, anything to try to help that process so you can save that embarrassment. That's crazy. How do you guys handle pronunciation of names when it comes to, because as an MC, or, you know, that can be very, very difficult when it comes to that. And I know some will only introduce, you know, first names because of last names being so difficult. And what's your way of handling that?
I go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead, Cubbie.
I do a phonetically spelling all the names at an Indian guy. I'll never forget his name is Sean McMurkerjee. Not hardly any vowels in there, just a lot of consonants. And so I spelled it phonetically and then just practice it the entire week. So if I have a difficult name, I definitely spell it phonetically. I tell them at my planning meeting as I'm taking notes that don't look at the way that I spell their name because I'm spelling it phonetically for me to know on your wedding date exactly how I can pronunciate their name.
Yes.
And they may giggle at sometimes the way that I spell it, but it makes sense to me that I can pronunciate it. But I spell things phonetically as easy as pictures if I have to, like little farm animals or something too, is just whatever I have to do.
I do something almost identical is writing it out phonetically. Just trying to make sure, and it drives me nuts because I'm like, I'll tell them that. I'm like, I'm writing it out. I'm going to write it how I'm hearing it. And like, they'll say the name and then they'll start spelling it. I'm like, stop. Just let me hear what you just said. Like, again, one thing I've done once or twice, and I would encourage you potentially to do this. I think it's a great idea. It was something I broke the habit, or I got out of the habit about the time that I stopped doing in-person interviews, was to record.
Yep.
Just an audio recording of what was going on, because then they're saying it. And then it's not me looking at my notes. I can listen back to them saying that name and then practicing it off of that. And then the day of, like when I'm lining it up, and I even tell my couples, I'm like, listen, I'm going to line them up. I'm going to say the names again to them. And if I screw it up, that's their opportunity to fix it. And if they still don't, well, then I'm saying the same thing in there and it's their fault. Usually that works. I've had a couple that have actually been really impressed. Like I like, you know, people in the wedding party, and I'll say the name and they're like, you got that right. Yes, I did.
The recording, I'm going to build off that a little bit, Dan. This week I have a planning session and we have, I think, 4 names that are going to be difficult. We're going to be doing it via Zoom. And of course, there's this little record button at the bottom. So when we get to that point, I'm going to ask them to say those names and record them and then do the phonetic spelling also. But I want to have that. Another wedding I had where it was like 8 out of the 9 bridesmaids, and it was 8 of them were like, oh my gosh, first and last name were, you know, unusual spellings. So it's like, can you call my cell phone and leave me a voicemail and read through all of your bridesmaids? Just go down and just read through them, just kind of casually, you know, like Helen Hunt, you know, whatever. Obviously that wasn't one of them, but, you know, just nice. Don't make them fast. Just like you would do a nice casual tempo to that, And oh my gosh, that made it so much easier because we're talking about a lot of very unusual spellings, a lot of unusual pronunciations. It helped tremendously.
I find it interesting that sometimes the couples they know the last name, but they don't really use it. So they're going to do the pronunciation. They have no idea either.
Oh, that's
and
funny.
Like, I think it's this. Is it this? Yeah, we're gonna go with this. And then you get there and you say it, and they're like, "No, that's not even close." And it's like, and you see the couple kind of like in the back, kind of like laughing, like not like we screwed you over, but like, yeah, we didn't know either.
Yeah, Thomas mentions about recording Zoom. He records the whole meeting, and I've thought about doing that also. It's just that for me, I've got a pro version, so I can record for hours if I wanted to. Some folks only have the 40-minute version, so that's why I didn't. Otherwise, they'd be like, "Oh no, we were just getting ready, and then it timed out and said you have to restart." So, but yeah, Thomas, if you can record the whole thing, it's absolutely fabulous because then you can go back and sometimes you can read body language because say if I'm reading my note or reading something from down here. And I mentioned something, and one of them cringes, and then at the time I look up, I lost it. You can sometimes go back and say, "Oh, wait a second, this didn't seem to be hitting these two just as I expected it to hit them. I might need to dig into this just a little bit more." So good advice, Thomas. So let's talk about the microphone side of it just a little bit about making announcements. You guys have, we've talked about a few things over our time, but even Randy Bartlett has had a microphone session and he really got into it. Mike Walter's actually teaching a microphone skills kind of workshop, and he was just down and doing it in North Carolina, I want to say, somewhere.
He's been all over recently. Yeah,
he's really doing that. So for people who are just getting into emceeing. What would be a couple of words of advice that you guys, and Cubbie, I'm going to have you start us off here with this one, but what would be some words of advice for someone who's just getting into using the microphone and wants to become better in that area?
I would say proper placement of the microphone, where to hold it. Try to be relaxed, practice your notes all week, whether if you got a full-time job and you're doing it and doing this on the weekends as kind of a part-time. Make sure that you spend enough time preparation and getting the names like we talked about earlier, father the name brides. Don't do that Mick Wedding or the cookie cutter where you're saying bride and groom all night long. Use your couple's names, John and Dan, all night long. Father the bride, never say that. Use his name, use names. And just basically just being calm, slow your pace. Make sure that your pace is nice and slow and enunciate. Remember, like I said, like you're talking to your grandma because grandma's out there and everybody wants to be able to hear it. So I would say pace, proper, make sure there's a good volume, not too loud, not too soft, as far as, volume control. And like Dan said, get out in front, control the room, get them to be completely quiet when you get ready to do the toast, and just command the room and such.
I'm going to go.
I want to just talking about commanding room. I think this is one of the Todd Mitchum. Another thing from Todd Mitchum, he had talked about that he had a ball with him. I don't have a ball, but we're going to pretend that this water bottle is the ball he was referring to. And he said, basically, this is the focus of the room. And unless I have the focus of the room right here with me when I'm making announcements, I'm not going to be successful in that. So when you're talking about commanding the room, really the way Todd described it as that ball is maybe something happened on the other side of the room, and that's where the ball is right now. Now I have to command the room or get people's attention. I have to get that back to me. And then there's going to be times where I want to throw that ball to a different spot when you're doing the introduction of the bride and groom as they're coming through the door type of a situation. But I just love that idea of thinking about the attention of the audience as this ball. And when I get it, everyone here, now what do I do with it? And what do I want to be intentional about when it comes to that? I can't get that ball generally when I'm standing behind my gear. As Dan was saying earlier, I can only get that ball when I get out there and get to where people can see me and give me that attention. Okay, Dan, what were you?
No, I was just going to say, so kind of to Cubbie's point about holding the microphone, you see some people they'll do this. That is
he could be an air traffic controller.
Yeah, I could have. That actually
Yeah,
probably
you
would have worked
could.
very well for me.
Yeah,
Maybe
wow.
that's another career to add to my
Sure.
resume. Anyway, no, like that's one thing in particular, like just making sure like you know how to hold a microphone and be aware of that, and you're not doing like the the rapper that you saw on some award show sometime. Um, Pay attention, and there's a key right there. Watch award shows and watch the MCs and how they are doing those award shows, like that they have the presence and oftentimes the training to be a host and a master of ceremonies throughout that. So that's definitely going to be key. Day and Night says use your outdoor voice. I would say more of a projecting than it is, outdoor voice, which is probably kind of the same, but a lot of people hear outdoor voice and they just think loud. I can project and it will seem like I'm kind of forceful, but
Right.
it's not going to be a yelling type of situation. And that will help kind of where your speakers don't send will help you send to that. And then I'm also going to add to that, take a workshop. Like just flat out take a workshop, because I will tell you right now, there are a lot of them that we've already kind of referenced that will help you fine tune those skills. The things that you think you're doing right will get torn
Exponentially better.
apart.
Yeah, but
Well, I was
yeah,
gonna say, like the things you think you're doing right will get torn apart, and you'll get refined for what you need to do, and then those skills will take you to that next step. Like there was things that I was doing. I still remember my first Marbecca workshop. I just after the first day, I was exhausted because I was just like I've been doing this for how many years, and I didn't even think about like that or this. Um, and so that's gonna help. I'm gonna actually contradict though with my last piece here. I'm gonna contradict something Cubby said. All right. And in his thing, he said, don't use bride and groom. He said, don't use father of the bride, use their names. I agree with the using of the names. However, I do believe that using their title occasionally throughout the night is a good thing, because that's their title, right? That night, she is the bride, he is the groom. And I've seen enough jackets or throws shawls or whatever with on the back bride, groom. Like it didn't say Susie, Bobby. Like it said, their titles for the night. So I do think there is a place for it, but as with anything, if it becomes cookie cutter, if it becomes I don't know who these people are, so I'm using titles for lack of anything else, and now you've got it for the wrong reason. But occasionally throwing that in or mixing that in, our father of the bride tonight, George, or however you might go about that. I think that's going to be key. And you could also help because, again, it's their title. It has a place, throughout the night.
for sure. You mentioned you're talking a little earlier there, Dan, about with the MC training and how they go through some things, and you talked a little bit. You were just headed to the way professional MCs when you watch them on TV, and you're getting to the point about talking about them being in the moment, and really, I think part of microphone skills and improving that area when talking with a crowd is also being in the moment and having improv skills, that you're talking and you're doing something and you're observing what's going on, because there's going to be a moment where something happens in the crowd or somebody does something or somebody says something, and you can either ignore it if you need to, and sometimes you do need to ignore those things and just keep rolling. And there's times where someone gives you gold that you can use. Somebody does something silly during the introduction of the wedding party, and you can build off that. And when I've talked to my DJs and have trained them over the years, my thought was, you don't want to embarrass anybody. That's not what you're here for. You're only there if you can say something that will take what they're doing and take it to give them a little bit higher, to make it more exciting, to make it more fun, to make a funny that will be something that people will enjoy, but yet not at the expense where it's going to humiliate or embarrass anybody, because that's completely inappropriate. So the idea that if you're in the moment and you're seeing something and you're like, hey, woo, woo, whatever, just little things, showing that you're part of the party, is a big part of it, as opposed to, and now it's Bobby and Susie, and now it's Katie and Steven, and you're just going through and they're doing fun things and you're just kind of ignoring it. Well, that's not going to do much for the connecting with the guests and such. So being in a moment, and sometimes that means taking improv. Many people in our industry have taken improv courses. They teach those around the country, And some people who have had those have said they were, to a point, almost life-changing when it came to their ability to connect with the crowd. So that's a big part.
You mentioned connection. One thing I would encourage when you're doing your meetings and especially like they're getting ready for their parent dances or even just like talking about their first dance, get to know kind of the stories behind these relationships. Um, and whether you use that or not necessarily in what you say, how you say it is going to be so much more effective. Like, for example, if I'm talking about, a bride about to dance with her dad, and she talks, when I asked her to give me a kind of some insight about her dad, and she tells me about this relationship she had since she was a little girl and how she was always daddy's little girl, then the emotion that I'm going to put into what this dance is about to be is going to be something very caring and something very heartfelt.
Sure.
I'm going to imagine my own children and how I would want somebody to talk about something they and I were going to do. Versus, if they're like, yeah, I kind of got to dance with dad and, we really haven't known each other and he just showed up, and I'm still going to put some emotion into it, but it's not going to be exactly that same type of feel. So it's that connection that John was talking about, understanding their story and where they're from leads into whether this is going to be a heartfelt emotional moment or whether this is going to be a quick piece. And the last thing you want to do is to say something over the microphone that's going to indicate it's a relationship that it's not. To say that there's this heartfelt thing and they've been thinking about this dance since they were little, only to find out that this guy was absent for 30 years and just showed up.
Yeah. Cubbie, where do you use when you're interviewing and you're finding out a lot of information? Where are some of the spots you use some of that information in your shows?
When you need to explain something, for example, a couple of years ago, I had a mother-son song, and the song was "Mrs. Robinson" by Simon and Garfunkel. Right?
Yeah.
So you guys, the pretense of the song. It's about an older woman who sleeps. But for Ross and Susie, it was the very first song of that album. And every Saturday morning, they'd clean their house, and his mom would throw that album on, and she taught Ross to dance to that song, in the living room. So if you just would have said, ladies and gentlemen, the song they chose this evening is Mrs. Robinson by Simon and Garfunkel, and didn't pretense it,
that would have been uncomfortable.
Right? So you got, sometimes you have to preference, like I said, you have to set the moment. You have to, like, ladies and gentlemen, every Saturday morning was cleaning day at the Shoup's household. And Susie would always put this album on, and she taught Ross to dance this song. So the whole special meeting for Ross this evening. The song they chose this evening, Mrs. Robinson by Simon and Garfunkel. And just kind of, then it just hit it. And then then it was like, oh, that is so sweet.
Mm-hmm. Instead of then creepy or weird,
Yeah. Well, then I had one grandma's favorite song was Highway to Hell, and grandma had passed away. So I just came and send Highway to Hell out to grandma. So you got it once again. You're like,
yeah, that would be a bad, oh my gosh. This one's going out to grandma. She died. Woo! Yeah. And be like, what is he saying?
I would say one of the tips I took from Randy that I think, and I want to attribute to him, and if it's not, guys, please correct me, but the idea of asking why.
Yeah.
I think I remember him saying, like, he pretends, or he prefaces when he's talking with his couples, listen, I'm going to ask you this question a lot. So just get prepared. I'm not questioning you. I'm not trying to challenge you, but I need to know why. Yeah. Why do you do this? Why do you do that? Why is this song? Why is that song? And that, if you can set that up so that they understand that why is coming, and it's not a challenge, but it's to help you understand. One, when it comes time to quote unquote challenge something that means bupkis to them, but they decide to put it on a request sheet or something else, or you need to get that deeper insight, you've got it. The why is there.
Yeah, that would be a fabulous idea, is to have that conversation early in the process of, okay, this is what it's going to be. I will be asking this, and this is why. This is why I'm going to ask why. Yeah. Well,
and I think it shows the bride and groom that you care, that you genuinely care, and your give a shit factor is huge versus just, what's your song? Okay, cool, thanks. Great. Okay, what are you gonna do for Mother Son?
Oh yeah, I got that song. Great. Okay.
Yeah.
and then the last song of the night is, all right, your wedding's planned. Let's go. It'll be fun. I'll see you, bride and groom.
Rascal Flatts. Yeah. My Wish.
So let's talk a little bit about, in our last time here together, learning more about music. And of course, if you really want to get a deep dive into music, you can jump into the show on Tuesday nights at 10 o'clock Eastern, DJNTV.com/chill, where Brian and Jay and John and Howie, they dig into some of music history and some of the old albums and some of the newer things, but they really get into some really neat discussion. So you can check that out Tuesday nights at 10 o'clock. But for somebody who's wanting to learn more about music for the events that we do, i.e. weddings in this case, how would you recommend that they learn, what's hot and what's out there?
Go ahead, Dan.
I would say, first off, if you're not listening to Mixcloud, download the app, get yourself set up with an account, and just start following DJs out there who do weddings, right? There's a lot of shows on there. There's EDM stuff. There's different things like that. But there's a lot of DJs who will post portions of their night on there for you to check out. And so I would start with that. And I listen to Mike Walter when he posts, this is the after whatever, the first 30 minutes after I'd said, come in the door, whatever it is, it gives me an opportunity to hear what somebody else is doing. And even if they're in a different market, it gives me a way to think about it. And that's one of the ways that I would start right there. I would pay attention to the top 200 lists, as crazy as we think that they might be sometimes. And we're like, oh my gosh, they feel like they're outdated or whatever you might say about them. They're there because people are putting them on the list. And so paying attention to them in the context of everything else is a great place. And then there are different groups out there and different people that share playlists and share, like sets or folders or different things that they do. Being a part of some of those groups to get ideas. Again, I would not use them as a crutch, but I would use them as ideas to kind of help your show grow, I think is fantastic ideas, and helps you narrow down a library that might be huge otherwise.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking for the DJ Event Planner Top 200. Where is that at?
You can go to any account and then just go to Plan My Music. It's what I would probably do.
Yeah.
And for those who are not familiar with DJ Event Planner and how they compile that list, those are literally, they take the list from all the brides, from all the DJs that use DJ Event Planner software, and the brides that make those requests. And those literally are the top 200 lists. They also have a UK version. So that's always so interesting to watch too. But it's always fun to watch the songs climb up. But DJ Event Planners is that's how they compile their lists, and it is a good list. If your bride and groom give you zero direction, like, oh, we trust you, once again, I do encourage you to find the years that they graduated, go to Billboard, look at the top, look at the top hits from the year that they graduated high school and things of that nature, and find. But top 200, if they give you zero direction, and you're kind of winging it. That's like Dan said, there's some great lists out there.
See, my direction, guys, would be Spotify, because I've been using a lot of Spotify. I download some of these playlists that people have made for running and such, because there's dead spots when I'm out running. But Jim Cerrone has, if you've got Spotify, search for Jim Cerrone. He has got a series of playlists that he's put together by tighter year ranges, that have some great songs in there, the big hits, plus some a little bit deeper cuts that people will know. The good tunes that are the dance things. Get in there if you're wanting to learn more about 80s rock. You can go and put in there 80s rock, and you're going to get some very highly voted on playlists that are very popular. Spend some time, listen to some of these playlists and such, just to learn about the music. And then, as jumping back into what Dan said with the Mixcloud, then you're going to be able to hear some of these songs utilized by DJs at weddings and how they play them and how they line them up. And that's actually one of the cool things about some of those shows, is that you're hearing it's like, oh, I would have never put those two songs together. And there they are. And somebody did. So I've become a huge fan of Spotify, and even Brian is in the chat room tonight. Brian and I are big fans of Yacht Rock, and on weekends, iHeartRadio does a commercial-free Yacht Rock radio weekend, so you can basically turn it on as you're working around outside and pulling weeds in the garden, whatever you're doing on Sundays, and you're able to hear some old tunes, and maybe you're hearing things that will be able to be put into your cocktail hour type things. Spending some time in these different genres can definitely help that. So.
by the way, I'm going to give a quick plug to Matt again.
Oh yeah.
So we had Matt in a little while ago. So this is his book, Wedding Songs Planner, and there's, I mean, I don't remember how many lists he has. Like it's a buku amount, and every genre, every decade, and everything else. So it can also give you some ideas to maybe different directions to go. He also has most of those in a Spotify playlist. So
nice.
you can also, very simple. As soon as you started talking about Jim Cerrone, it reminded me about Matt's because I stumbled upon it kind of through like some extra things of his. And so you can actually listen. You don't have to like search the song. Oh, let me listen to it. You can just listen to the list that corresponds with something from the book.
Nice.
And find it that way. I've actually added some of those lists, like, or favorited them, I should say, and put them in a category of like suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
So like when I have a couple that's looking for, hey, can you give me a suggestion? Yes, I can give you this list and I can give you this list, and you can listen to them, which is another way to take it that next step. Because a lot of them are like, oh, great title. If you can make it even easier, just here's a list and you can listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, thank you. That made it so much faster for me. So Greg Wiggs mentioned. So here we go. Wedding Songs Planner is the book. And Matt Campbell.
Nice. And if you get a chance, you can bounce back to Matt. You do a search on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/discjockeynews. Matt Campbell. There was links for his book there, and it was good. It was a fun night to talk stuff, talk music and such. Robin put the Spotify link in the YouTube chat, so you guys can grab that. The DJ Event Planner most requested link is also in there. If you go to djeventplanner.com, you go all the way to the right and you'll see the charts, and you can go back year 2, 3, 5. Goodness, I think they had like 15 years of charts there, which is kind of neat because you can go back to 15 years ago. Your bride and groom were 7 and 8 years old or something like that at that time. So you can see songs that they probably heard when they went to their aunt's wedding. There's that. So if that has value. So okay, excellent, guys. Thank you. Let's see, tomorrow. So tomorrow night we got Tuesday Night with Ben Stode. Ben is going to be talking about some wireless audio, some new stuff that's come out recently, and we're going to kind of revisit the whole idea of running audio wirelessly to either remote speakers or doing the full room with wireless audio. And we're going to be digging into that tomorrow night at 9 o'clock Eastern. 10 o'clock tomorrow night, Tuesday night, is the music show. The guys are recording the music show at DJNTV.com/chill. And then Wednesday night, we will be running a Hanging with Howie and one of the Tuesday night music shows. We'd run those, stream those on Wednesday nights for you guys to catch. Tomorrow morning, I'll have a little tips video up talking about microphones. I think tomorrow is maybe. And then Dan has a Wednesday morning video tip that he does. Cubbie doesn't do video tips for you guys because he doesn't love you enough. I'm just saying. So maybe someday.
Not that cool.
Yeah,
Not that
someday
cool.
he'll do it from the cornfields of Iowa. It will be fabulous. So yeah, next, Hanging with Howie. You guys can pop out there. Howie and the crew, they hit a topic each week. DJNTV.com/chill. And they have some great discussions. You'll be able to hear them in a couple of weeks when we stream them, but if you want to be there tonight and then afterwards, once they shut down the recording, you can hang out and talk shop, kind of the hallway talk we talk about from DJ conventions. That's what they're going to be doing tonight, and that'll be starting here in about 10 minutes. So DJNTV.com/chill and go hang out with Howie tonight. We're good.
Awesome. Well, on that note, thank you everybody for taking time out of your Monday night to join us. And if you're watching on the replay, whatever time you decided to watch it, I thank you very much for doing that. We appreciate it. And we will see you all next time.